Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday, December 18th, 2019 episode of Free Webinar Wednesdays. This is our last episode of Free Webinar Wednesdays for the year, and I am super excited to have my good friend all the way from South Africa joining me for the show, Francois Muscat from WSI. He is a very close and dear friend. He and I have known each other pretty much since I started my journey with WSI back in 2007, and we're going to have him here on just in a little bit after I get through my perfunctory introductions and other sorts of housekeeping items. But for those of you that are joining the show for the first time, welcome. Those of you that are repeat visitors, thanks for coming back. We are live, and today's show is being recorded and will be pushed out to freewebinarwednesdays.com. You can check out this show and other shows. We did an episode with Ryan Kelly, who is also an author from our book previous, and he did the chapter on video marketing, so you can certainly check that one out. And we're walking through over the next several months as we get into 2020, introducing some of the other authors from the WSI world for our new Digital Minds book. So we're pretty excited. Those of you that are attending live, if you have a question, comment, thought, or just want to say hello, feel free to use the chat function in your GoToWebinar control panel, which is likely floating over there on the right-hand side of your computer screen. We love to hear from folks that are attending live and enjoy the interaction and conversation that we get sometimes on our live shows. I told Francois the intro, I'm going to do my best to try to embarrass him a little bit, but not necessarily like for real. But before we get started, I figured just to give you some perspective on Francois and all of the fun times that we've had together through our connection through the WSI world, I hopped into my Google Photos. And so I don't know, Francois, if you're a user of Google Photos or not, but Google Photos has this really cool function where it has facial recognition, which is somewhat creepy at times, but you can put in a contact's name and identify their face, and Google Photos goes through and grabs all of the pictures that are in your Google Photos of that individual. So I don't know if you're prepared for this, Francois, because I didn't tell you I was going to do it, but I would like to share with you some of the photos that Google Photos has gathered from us here. So probably not the most flattering picture there of you, Francois, although I'm certainly the shadow warrior. But Francois and I have had some wonderful times together, and these pictures are from a strategic planning retreat we did together with WSI up at the Provincial Park in Algonquin in Canada, and Francois was able to celebrate his birthday with us and played around with a 360 camera, and Francois and I both got to spend some time in Spain where I attended one of his LinkedIn training sessions. And that's where I was convinced that I needed to be a paying subscriber to LinkedIn Sales Navigator because of all the awesome stuff that you've shared. And all joking aside, Francois, the WSI network is certainly better for having you a part of it, and I consider you a dear friend and a great resource, and I am super excited to have you on the show today. So I didn't embarrass you too bad, did I?
No, not at all. I was just going to stay on mute for a while, but thank you very much. It was nice. It's really good reflecting on those times.
Yeah.
I mean, one photo just has so many memories, so it's wonderful in the network that we have.
Yeah. I was browsing these before we hopped on, and there's our second edition book launch, which I was able to attend. Our good friend Chuck from California, some rewards and recognitions that we've received over the years. So just lots of cool stuff. And the fact that you're in South Africa and I'm in Michigan, the joy of the internet just doesn't seem to matter a whole lot where we're at. We're always connected, and I think that's been one of the best parts I love about WSI. So the book is a collaborative effort, and as I go through and get Francois to be the presenter, Those of you that may have joined the show with Ryan Kelly, this is our third edition of the Digital Minds book. WSI has selected 12 consultants from around the world to author chapters. Francois did the very first chapter, so if you get the book, once you get through the intro, you're going to jump right into his chapter on analyzing your market, products, services, and the competition, gaining an understanding of what you're up against before you jump into your digital marketing strategy. And so, while we didn't necessarily go in order, because I think Ryan was chapter number 8, he was available a little bit before you were. So we're going to go back up a little bit, and we're going to have you share some of your insights on your chapter with us. We'll certainly be interested in questions from the audience, but it's my turn to put my microphone on mute and hand the mic over to you so you can share with us your chapter on our new Digital Minds book.
Great. So thanks, Eric. I really appreciate this opportunity. So just to confirm, sounds good, and you can see my screen. And
yep, everything looks great.
That's great. So, like all of us, when we're out there, working and prospecting and working with clients, many times, I come across a client or prospect and they say to me, well, what do I need to do, to match my competitors? Because I type in these keywords and I keep seeing them come on every time on Google, and, they don't see themselves. And they want to know, what are they doing, and, how they could, match that. So one of the first things I always like to do is talk about, just get an understanding, of where you are, and also where your competitors are and what are they doing. Because typically, if it's a new business, you'll find that that person or that company is sort of in the novice stage of digital marketing. They have a website, it's got maybe some local search, and that's all they're playing with, without realizing that there's a lot more. So I like to recommend that if you're going to start a new business online, do a competitor analysis so that you can see what you're up against, have an idea of the type of budgets your competitors are spending, because that's the key. We want to know what the budget is, but we don't always know unless we know what we're up against. And I like to use a competitor analysis as well for websites that are stuck. So the traffic is plateaued, the site's not growing anymore, and you're under pressure. So I like to do this as an audit and just help the SEO team or whoever it is, to identify what to do. The report, ends up on one page, which is really this page. I normally start off with it because it can generate, enough conversation, and then we show you how we build this. So there are 3 things that we worry about most on digital marketing. One is your search visibility. So how good are you on this axis with search? And when we talk about search visibility, we mean Google AdWords, or is there a budget being spent that you're targeting specific keywords? And also on SEO, search engine optimization, are your keywords ranking well enough for your products and services and not necessarily your brand? So that's really key to understand, because you can rank for your brand many, many times, but if you're not ranking for your services, then people don't know about you. So when you look at this is with a bunch of Fireplace companies that I worked with. This one was the client, but it's not Fireplace Galore. I just changed the name for this presentation. So you'll see along this axis, this means that Fireplace are doing really well. And on the axis going up, we're looking at the social impact. So how well are everybody using social media? So the higher you're on this axis, and you'll see that you have good social media, a big network. And then the third thing we look at is the size of the bubble, and that is based on the number of pages that you have in Google. And it's amazing, without fail, that you'll find that sites that have good content, a lot of content, are normally up here because their content is indexed really well and it generates a lot of traffic, blog posts, etc. and they also share those content articles on social media, which is why they end up here. So it's good to see this, because many times if you are Scott's Fireplace, you realize, I mean, you're doing quite well. You might be spending most of your money on Google AdWords to be on the search visibility axis, because your SEO is not functioning well because you don't have enough content. So Eric, I know, you and I, we do a number of these, together for banks and that. How do you see this as a positioning tool for a client to like see where they are fitting on the map, sort of immediately across the digital space?
I think and we've done it for a number of banks, because that's obviously the industry that I spend most of my time in. But for a number of the banks that we've done this for, this is one of the first times they've actually been able to get a visual representation of where they stand as it relates to search visibility and social impact or social engagement. And it paints a picture in most instances of some need that before they start doing anything from a digital marketing perspective, they now can identify, well, what are the areas that they need to spend more time in? And oftentimes the bank might be spending some time in Facebook because that's kind of the shiny object that everybody's chasing. So their social involvement is starting to creep up a little bit, but the search visibility is where most of the time they suffer, because they typically haven't gotten into the habit of producing content and thinking like a publisher and producing information. It's product details that's on the website and maybe isn't being changed on a regular basis. And so they may see some good positioning as it relates to social, but being found by the search engines, is now a challenge, and they're starting to realize that they need to pay attention to how Google and others are ranking them when folks go online, looking not for their brand, like you said, but looking for things like mortgage loans, checking accounts, or the products and services that they offer.
Right. And, and immediately it sort of tells you, what you're up against. If Scott's Fireplace had to match Fireplace Galore in content, it would take them a long time. So
yeah.
You realize, oh, I've got a lot to do. But fortunately, there's a lot of good tools out where we can analyze which pages are doing the best out of each one of these competitors. And in that case, if we were trying to help Scott, we would say, well, here are 5 pages that generate the most traffic, for this website. Let's start creating content along those lines. So it's always a good positioning tool. And when we do these, you can do them annually or like twice a year. And if you, take the advice and you implement what you learn from this, you can quickly see how you move along these axes and also, what your competitors are doing.
Yep.
So really,
I feel the urge to use the analogy, and I'm not saying this because you're from South Africa, but it would be even more relevant with you than anybody else. The adage of how do you eat an elephant, and it one bite at a time, as opposed to trying to do it all at once. And your comment of finding the quick actionable items to say, I'm not going to go from this tiny little green dot that is Scott's Fireplaces and get to this ginormous globe, which is Fireplace Galore. But how do I figure out to take baby steps towards that? And are there areas where you can make a bigger impact with minimal effort and reveal some of those opportunities so that you don't feel so overwhelmed, like I'm never going to get to that size? It's actually a lot more doable than you think if you know what to look for. And that's where I think that's why this is the chapter that kicks off the book, because it helps set the stage for all of your actions moving forward.
Exactly. And a tool like this, and I can show you this client because it's a cancer site, and it's just a really it's based with a lot of content. And so this was our competitor. It's very easy to see that besides their homepage, this page here on Survivor Stories is what drives the rest of the traffic, 19% of their traffic. So if you were like competing with us, you could find all the keywords that they rank for, and you would then start building content around that. So you can really be a lot more specific and focused instead of saying, oh, you know what I need to do? I've got to write 50 articles a month, and you don't know which ones are going to work well, so that's how we tackle it. So the very first thing that I like to do is, just see how healthy your website is, because, believe it or not, if you don't have a healthy website, Google doesn't really like you that much, and they can see that the user experience is not good. So, we have the tools where we would run each one against a number of scores, like quality, experience, marketing, and technology for each one. So you can see, Wow Fireplace Galore is already at the top. They have a 78 score, quite a little bit ahead of the others. So, looking at each one of these, if you were the second place, we could investigate, how well they do. So with most of our clients that we work with, we would run a health score every single month, and try and get that score doing well, try and pick up all the errors. Over here you can see these are all the SEO tags that these are duplicates that still need to be fixed. So on a site of this size, where there's 6,000 URLs, you don't do this overnight. It's done on a regular basis. So you'll see that your ongoing health is important. So if you comparing yourself to, I think it's like the gym, Eric. You go to the gym and you need to lose a few pounds, and you look at the guys that can push the weights. It's taken them a while to get there, so you've got to do the same. You've got to do that exercise and be healthy. I know you do a lot of exercise riding your bike wherever you go.
It does. And that's the other thing is, it's a long-term strategy, because some of these things are ones, even if you develop and do a lot very quickly, in the world of the internet might not respond as immediately as you're able to perform the work. And having a slow and steady process that's consistent over time is one of the things that you have to be comfortable with. And when we talk to folks that want a result in, the first month, maybe from an advertising perspective, they can move the needle. But what we're seeing here is, what are the elements that need to be put into an annual strategy? And you might not see the needle move for 6, 8, 10 months, and then things will start rolling in the right direction. But that momentum is going to take a while, especially if it's been sitting still for a long time.
Right. So the first thing, we look at the health. Then we would move on, to the traffic. So, we're lucky there are so many, good tools out there today. So you use a tool like SEMrush, you can easily put your competitors in here, and you run a 2-year gap. And this one's a 1 year that we're looking at. And you can see the traffic that's generated by Fireplace. Then it dropped, and then Blue Water Pools actually nearly caught up. And then there's this gap. So if you were unaware of this, that your market is being eroded, even though you are the best and you're doing well, your competitors are taking action. So, they might not have done much in 2018 and early 2019, but all of a sudden, come May 2019, competitors are doing things and getting more traffic. So by, doing a regular review, you can quickly, put in some alerts to see what new pages they are putting in, and how you can actually just keep an eye on it. So traffic obviously is important. That's what most people go for. But the key is to, get the traffic that is focused on your products and your services and not your brand. You see, so this has got all branded traffic in it as well. So I normally have to sort that out so that you get a good idea of, what piece of the pie you can get. So this is how we check the SEO out. We, find out, what are the keywords that this website is ranking for that is generating, that sort of traffic. So you can easily, with these tools, this Ahrefs that's just my favorite tool. is I could just come here and say, well, show me all the organic keywords, the 5,200 keywords that this website is ranking for, where they're ranking on Google, and how much volume is available. So just by exporting this, filtering them out, you can identify what is going on here and how they are doing this. So Eric, I know you have a SEMrush subscription as well.
Yep.
How are you using it, in this space? I know you actually do online,
Well,
up-to-date analysis.
yeah, I think a vast majority of the folks that we share information with are surprised that this data is available. I think that goes probably universally across the board for all digital statistics when you're looking at ad tracking and remarketing and retargeting or geofencing or personality profiling. There's way more data available than what you could think of. And to some people that freaks them out because it's a little creepy that that amount of information is available for access. But using, and I often joke and say, we use our powers for good and not evil, but being able to have access to this information allows for the decisions made because you have finite time and resources. You can't be chasing every single opportunity to be able to narrow down and determine where the items are that you really want to spend time on. And when you can dig in and look at some of the valuable keyword phrases, for example, that don't include the brand of the business, but include products and services, if you're not seeing a lot of those, if you're a fireplace store and you're only being found for your name, now granted, if the word fireplace is in the name, that certainly helps. But from a bank's perspective, if it's XYZ Community Bank and you want to be known for home mortgage loans or business banking or commercial lending, if those aren't key phrases that a tool like Ahrefs or SEMrush is revealing, you need to do something as part of your plan to help educate the internet, and they will educate the consumer that your site is a resource available for those sorts of tools. And most of the time, there's a pretty significant gap because businesses just haven't thought about those things. They didn't know the tools existed to be able to even monitor that. But once they know, now you can start, again, going back to that, moving the needle a little bit. And that needle will move a whole lot faster the more content that's put out on the website.
Correct, yeah. So it's really just saying you're going to be a lot more efficient. So if we were working towards, so what we've just shown you here is we've looked at the search visibility in that space. So now we want to see, well, let's have a look at, from a content perspective. So what we do is, you can find out how many pages, website ranks for, or a website has just by typing in the site command in Google. So I'm sure, well, maybe, some people don't know that, but I can show you quickly. So you would just, you would just go into Google and you can just go site, let's say WSI world.com. And immediately you can see there's 969 pages ranked, or indexed in Google. And then, you can also then, check out, the blog and so on from this. So this is what we do. We get the number of pages per website, but we also look at the blog content, right? Because this is the key to growing a website. You can't just keep on adding services. You have only finite services. So the blog content is what helps you educate your prospect on how to use your services. So that's why you're not always selling in the blog space. You're always educating, looking at what questions are being asked and answering those questions. So when you look at this, you'll quickly see that the sites that work well are the ones that blog. So, if you are Scott's or Creative or these other guys, the recommendation is going to say, hey guys, you need to start, doing some blogs, regular. This is the type of blog content that Blue Water does, that sort of stuff can work for you. So this is what creates the size of the bubble, right? So when you add these two up, so you just get that whole percentage, and then we see that from that perspective. Now, I know, Eric, when we're looking at banking sites, many of them do not look at the content. They like to think about keeping their sites lean, just making it less is more for people to, get through their services. But sometimes they forget, that your blog is your newspaper, and
Absolutely.
They like to engage in social media, but they don't have a newspaper. So I
Yeah.
think, one of the things that you've often seen is how you're going to get them to, write content on LinkedIn or even on their blog.
We've actually done a number of projects, and at the very onset, even built into the RFP, is the desire by the bank to reduce the number of pages on their website because they feel that there's too much information and it's hard for people to find things. And we have to have the discussion around, while too much unnecessary information or a disorganization of information is not a good thing, the decreasing of the number of pages just by its nature is not always in best practice. You actually want to increase, but you want to do it in a sense that the customer, the visitor, the prospect has a better way of understanding. And that's where I think the site audit reveals that, to say you can organize your product information better, so that's easier for people to find and not so overwhelming. But where do you focus on writing the content that's helpful, educational? That's where the blog or the news or the resources area within a site really needs to really take hold. And that's where the growth takes place. And that's where you're going to get from the small little green dot to the big blue globe that we see on the competitive chart that you've got up on the screen right now.
Right. And then, so then we look at, so here we've got content. You normally see that content, if it's, optimized well, with the right H1s and the headings and that, it'll generate links because it's interesting. And that's how your search visibility increases so much more. So then we would move on and we would say, okay, so let's have a look at your social media across that, because believe it or not, the social media stuff is the stuff that takes time, right? It's labor intensive. It's not just writing an article. You've got to actually engage. You've got to think about what you're doing. You've got to be part of the community. So what do we look at here? Once again, we take blogs, Twitter, the followers, the Facebook likes, Instagram, and then YouTube. So across the board, when you look at the sites that have like the most networks, like Creative here has, the highest Instagram users. So they use, Facebook likes. So they're targeting a lot on Facebook, and some of these are much lower. So the good thing to do is you go look at their Facebook page, and I look for engagement, and many times you'll see there's hardly any difference between someone who has a big following and someone who has a small following, because when they put out posts there that are like salesy, they say, well, Black Friday specials or whatever it is, you don't get a lot of engagement. When you start asking questions and trying to get people engaged, it's a different story. So I like to look at the engagement of it. And I really do think YouTube plays a big role. When you have 20,000, views of your product, I mean, that's someone sitting watching your TV channel, where the others don't have it. What does it do? It keeps you on your website longer. It helps with conversion, and, it supports everything else. So the social media is really a big piece of it. But I find many people are just doing it just because they need to do it, but they don't have a focused campaign. I don't know if you see this something similar, in the banking industry, because they tend to use it more as a service thermometer than anything else.
Well, the engagement comment, I think, is very important in the sense that we oftentimes will hear people say, I need to get more followers or fans, and I need the number to grow. And in a certain sense, yes, it's important to have a good quantity of individuals that could potentially see your information, but it's more valuable to have engagement with those folks. And so in Facebook, a following of even a smaller magnitude, but that's engaged and interacting and having conversations is much more valuable than, 3 or 4,000 fans that don't interact with you and don't see any further information because they really don't care. They just click the like button to enter a promotion or a contest or because somebody asked them to. But if they're not interacting and engaging with you, that means that you're not providing value and there's really a low level of interest on their part.
Right. So just to remind all our viewers today, what I'm talking through here is really the thought process and the research that goes into producing a digital marketing strategy, right? Because if you read the rest of the book, you're going to learn from Ryan about video, you're going to learn about conversion architecture from Chuck and a few of the others that have gone into each one of these subjects, a lot deeper. But this is like the helicopter view, but giving you, a good position, to go forward. So when we produce this, normally what happens next is, we give the client a number of options and we say, right, this is what you need to be engaging with, maybe a small Google AdWords campaign, start working on your SEO. This is the type of budget that you would look for. And then we recommend, a content strategy by taking the best articles on the internet that have, that generate the traffic, as well as, looking at, once again, SEMrush and this tool here. Let's just go quickly to Content Explorer. So if I was going to look at, let's say, so I've been working on HVAC right now. So let's just look at content about HVAC in the title. Straight away, I get 28,000 pages. And what am I looking for here? Is I'm looking for an article, and this is a video, that's generating 739 visitors a month. If you had to pay for it, it was going to be 3,000 US. And, you can go further and you can see when these are mostly YouTube videos, but once they get into an article, you can see the details of that article, how many words it is, and you can quickly figure out, okay, this is the type of content that's being shared on Facebook, Pinterest, across the board. So it's interesting. So it's really amazing that you can, hone down into this so quickly and get a good understanding. So we tell them, okay, here's the content plan. We suggest you write 4 blog posts a month and give them an estimate budget of how they can move across to try and close the gap on their competitor. Of course, when the rubber hits the road, and this is when Eric and I, we get the client and they go for it, and then you start reporting, right? And you got to see what happens. So this is an interesting client that we were working on in iCare. And, we're just running along, doing normal SEO, trying to rank for optometrists, wherever they are. And we just kept on asking the client, please, can we just not put some content on? And we were writing it, but they never approved it. Just too busy, never got around to it for a long time. And eventually we said, look, let's just put it on and see what happens. And they did. They let us do that. And this is what happened. We added an article, and the traffic, went from like 750 a month to 2,000, in a short space of time. And so when you put this together and then you have to measure it using analytics, this is where the proof is, and you can see it's on iCare. This is the most popular page now, and it grows like 29% in the last month. So I don't know, Eric, if you've had any experience with adding content, when clients say, oh, there's so many blogs out there, who wants to read this stuff? It's not going to bring me anything. Yeah, but when you do it and you can show it at this level, it's really interesting. Then they won't stop adding content.
Well, we've got a bank that hired us in March of this year to do focused SEO, which included some content, and we worked on their Google My Business pages, which is also another element that rolls into some of this and some of the on-site elements. And we produced some articles and we started seeing things going in the right direction, just like you saw. And then they got busy and they announced some internal projects that took resources away. So the content engine stalled. And for the first time in 6 months, we actually saw a downward trend in SEO. It wasn't a tremendous amount, but we had been up and up and up and up and up. And when we had our meeting, the question was, well, why are we going in the wrong direction now? We've been having so much luck. A lot of it, you never know exactly, but a lot of it we predict is because the content process stalled out and the search engine started to recognize that the valuable production of information and the resourcefulness of the site to the consumers was starting to wane, and other sites started taking position above ours, which has quickly convinced them that starting in January, we need to get back on that and start thinking of content that we can share that educates and informs. You don't necessarily want to get in a situation where someone is scared back into doing it, but it validated the reasons why content is such an important component to your online visibility. So we have seen it go in both directions, and we say it a lot, but when we actually see it happen and it validates what we're talking about, it kind of is a little bit reassuring that it's doing what it's supposed to do to a certain extent.
Right. And, as you were speaking, it's always great to put a slide like this where it's up, and when it goes down, what would you do? And I'm going to show you that, not in this next slide, but the one after this one. This is just to show you that article, there it is, eye care children. It ranks for 104 keywords, so many people don't realize that this is what can happen. They instead of just, you think you're targeting eye care children, that's one keyword phrase, and that's what you go for when you're doing SEO the old way, which is just like targeting one keyword phrase for one page. So Google is at the stage now where it's really smart, so it'll mix toddler, baby, and child, and just do that. All you have to do is give it a few signals, and you can just add more keywords, to a page. So this is the way that you increase traffic. You get an article, you write it, and then you start looking and seeing, okay, so what other keyword phrases is this ranking for, and where are they ranking, and what's the volume, and how do I bump these up? And how do you get to that is quite interesting, because I can get back to Lust Garden here, and what do? I can say, let me see who we compete against. So, when I click that, it then brings me up competitors. And what do we look for here? We say, right, here are the common keywords where both our client and this competitor rank for the same keyword phrases. But let's go for the second one. This client, pancreatic.org, ranks for 5,447 keywords that we don't. So wouldn't you like to know what they are, and you can just click on that, and you would straight away, get the content gap, and you download this and you can see all the keyword phrases, and you can, start to work with that. So, trying to work in, with taking into account what the competitors are doing is really key. Many people say to me, I'm just not really worried about the competition. But, we learn so much, and, we can spend, much less time, fixing that up. So, what I did now is, Eric, I had this client. This is not a pretty picture, right? So I sort of take them over around here. We build it up, we go up and down, and then crash. And so now we've got to figure out, what goes on. And you go and you look at every one of the pages, and you can just see, the traffic has just gone down. Now, this site's a busy site. A year ago, 123,000 visitors, down to 35,000. And, and this really coincided with the MEDDIC algorithm that Google implemented, which targeted anything to do with health and medicine and banking, right? So even some of your banking sites, you will see this happening. So when the client said to me, okay, now what do we do now? What's going on? So I said, well, let's just find out if it's something that we're doing that's been affected, or is this happening across this industry? And so I produced a few slides like this, and once again with Ahrefs, you can see the traffic 1 year, how it was going, and then this just fell through the bottom, all the way down here. Keyword rankings just fell. And so it's right, so you can go to Ahrefs and see who their competitors are. So we get a couple of them, and we see Dr. Axe, who now is gone from 7 million visitors a month to only, just under 1 million. Also, drop. Here's another competitor, Mind Body Green, drop. So when you're in this position, and you can see everybody is suffering from the same as you are, then you know that it's not your digital marketing agency that's at fault here. It's like, this is Google starting to give you a bit of a headache, and this is the trouble with everybody trying to get all their traffic from Google. Eric, I don't know if you've tried to get traffic from elsewhere. Sometimes, I try Pinterest and, Bing and a few others, because of the type of things that Google can do, just overnight to your website.
We've actually got a banker that is very, very interested in trying to figure out how we can tap into the data that Amazon has on consumers. And while Amazon will let advertisers participate in its ecosystem, at this point, you have to be promoting and providing a product or a service. So in the healthcare industry, which is a service that would not be something you would sell on Amazon, but if you've got something physical that you want to sell, well, driving traffic to your website through Google would be good, certainly participating in the Amazon ecosystem. But our banker's convinced that at some point, the data that's being collected by Amazon, people that are going out and they're maybe shopping for baby clothing, well, they might be interested in talking to a financial professional about figuring out how they're going to pay for college when that baby reaches the age of 18. Or if they're buying things to remodel their house and they're buying power tools, maybe they'd be interested in a home equity loan to help fund some of the home improvements. But at this point, it's not available. But keeping an eye out on where other traffic can come from as everything goes down. The other thing that this is good to reveal is analytics will provide you with the data, but you really have to understand how to interpret that data and what it really means. And if you were just to look at the first screen that Francois showed where your traffic dropped, you would immediately think something's wrong, something's broke. If you're doing it yourself or you're using an agency, someone's not doing their job. But the data exists outside of your organization. And when you look at the competitors in the industry, it shows you that you're just taking the lumps just like everybody else, because Google shifted the tectonic plates of the web and you're falling into the crevice just like everybody else is. So make sure that you kind of keep that in mind when you're doing your research and figuring out how well you're doing. You want to look around at others in the industry to get a bigger picture versus just your own little environment.
Right. So, when you keep on digging, sometimes you find some gold, right? So we carried on and we found Healthline, and look what happened here. Drop and recover. And so that was interesting. So now, we want to look at a plan, for our clients. So now, with a tool like this, you can say, all right, let me go and see what's going on here, because, wow, this is 70 million visitors a month. That's massive. And it's
that's huge.
So what do we find is author boxes. So now, one of the things that we're really, really highly focused on at the moment is this EAT: expertise, authority, and trust. And what Google, and this, if you follow this Marie Haynes, she's really amazing. So she talks about the quality raters guidelines. And what is happening? Google has some 16,000 people, real people, who visit websites, and they're visiting healthcare websites, and they're visiting financial websites, and they're looking at the authors and the author boxes, and they're saying, is this person who's writing this blog post about this health qualified to do so? Or is it just Francois Muscat or Eric Cook, the digital marketer, who's writing link bait out there, right? So this is how they are trying to clean up, and it's about 186 pages long, this article, the book, or the guidelines. But going through here, she's got a few tips and tricks as to what you need to do. So I'd follow this, and every week I read her newsletter, and I could see exactly when I went to this website how this lady who's writing as a parent has a picture of a child with her, and then she talks about it. This woman who does a lot of travel, also talking about babies, has got one. This lady talks about breast cancer, and she says that she is, she's actually has breast cancer as well. So it's in the author boxes, it's really key, when you are in the health or the financial side, that you choose somebody within the company that has the credibility behind it. One of the things they even do, Eric, is they'll click on this lady's name and go and look if she's on LinkedIn, and then see if it's their background and things like that. So it's quite amazing how Google has taken real people now, and getting them involved in, delivering, good content that is not, just spammy SEO type stuff.
Well, and it doesn't surprise me that they're paying attention to the industries that have the biggest impact on consumers from I don't know what the right way to say this is, but if you start messing with people's health or their finances, those are two pretty sensitive. And I did a webinar earlier today with one of the banking schools that I teach at, and we were talking about building your brand and your credibility and making sure that people know who you are and they like and trust you. And the reason that that's so important, when somebody sits down with a banker and they're looking to buy a house, or they want to refinance and do something with their business, or maybe they have a problem and they bounce some checks in their checkbook, you are probably the most vulnerable, other than going to the doctor and maybe disrobing and having an exam done. You're probably the most vulnerable when you sit in front of a banker, because they look at your finances, they've got access to your credit score, they know what your debt load is, they can determine if you've ever been past due on loan payments, and you have to have an amount of trust. So the fact that Google is paying attention to those folks that are producing content in those industries is a really good sign, because there's a lot of snake oil and other sorts of information that could lead consumers down the wrong path with either invalid medical information, which could have some pretty significant health issues, or bad financial data from somebody that really doesn't understand banking, and now you're making decisions and budgeting for things that you shouldn't be doing. Any of my banker friends that are listening to this, this is definitely something to pay attention to, and just reinforces that build your personal brand, be that banker that you want your customers to trust. And, it's not just a programmatic algorithm that's crawling around looking at that. And can you tie that back into somehow your organization's site with content authorship to help not just raise the credibility of you as an individual, but your organization as well? So this is really good stuff.
Yeah, excellent. Well, that it flowed pretty well into this, just to look at how, when you start off, which is how, I'm ending off on this slide once again, is, when you're talking to a client, a prospect, the ideal thing to do, just to recap, if you're deciding to go into a new e-commerce venture and you're going to spend, X amount of dollars on an e-commerce site to sell a widget, why don't you just do a competitor analysis to start off with and see, what's going on out there and what type of investment you have to do in that marketing. So it's a great one to test the market, right? So don't just dive in, build the website and then you don't have anything from that. The second thing that you can do is you run this as an annual audit. Just a check and balance, on the digital marketing company. I mean, I use this as a foot in the door strategy, or some of my clients, they don't work with me, but they just buy this report from me, and then they would give the recommendations to the in-house team or, to the SEO company to look at it. So it just gives you, a higher view on it. And then the other one is, if you're ever stuck and your traffic is stuck and you don't know what's going on or how to improve it, opening up something like this can give you a good window into what's happening. So Eric, I've really enjoyed today, and I'm not sure if there's a few questions that might be, asked out there by some of our viewers today.
There was one question that I answered privately in chat, but I'll repeat it here for everybody's benefit. You had mentioned SEMrush or SEMrush and Ahrefs, and wondering if they're the same thing. They're two totally different platforms that do similar things. I wouldn't say that they're an exact replacement of one another, because I think Ahrefs does some things a little better than SEMrush does. But those are two of the tools that are available to help get access to some of this data. They both subscribe to millions of keyword lists and other sorts of data sources and make that information available. You can certainly go out to either of those organizations and look at licensing and acquire a license yourself and dig in and start playing around. Or you can, find a consultant like one of us that has an access to the license and can maybe help you along the way. But both of them are giving you data that just Google Analytics has removed years ago due to privacy and whatnot. So having a clear understanding of what's going on out there, those are two of the tools that Francois and I use on a pretty regular basis.
Yes, Eric. Look, I don't advise that everybody rush out and go and get a subscription to these tools.
Sure.
They're not cheap. But the thing is, if you're not going to use them every day, this is what we do. This is our business. Without these tools, life would be difficult and you'd be guessing. But the advice, of showing you the tools is to say, right, be aware that there are tools like this out there that can help you see the truth. Because many people wonder whether they're getting the right advice from an SEO company. Two is maybe ask your SEO or digital marketing agency what tools they use, to help, improve your service. I think that's really where it's at. We have a bunch of tools in the SEMrush, this one, you've got, tons of them. But if you're not going to use them every day, that's a big chunk out of your business. That I wouldn't do it for a one-man website, never. But definitely your agency should be able to give you reports like this, and you saw how quick I can do it. So it doesn't really take a lot of time.
Yep. So we do have a comment as well. The statement that you made, your blog is your newspaper, that really hit home with one of the live viewers that thought that was a great way of positioning your blog just as an educational tool. So I have a feeling Sean might be using that in prior conversation or in future conversations within his bank. So that's a good observation there.
Well, I can give you a couple more, you see. So your blog is your newspaper.
All right. Make sure everybody gets your pen and paper. So your blog is your newspaper. What else you got?
Your podcast is your radio station.
Oh, there you go. That's a good one.
So your podcast is your radio station. So you can have a radio station, an episode going every day. And YouTube is your TV channel. Right? So you have the three things that you pay for a lot of money in the real world. They're for free for you. You just need to learn them. And to take it one further, your social media is the outlet that's selling the newspaper, right? So you have this newspaper, but you need to sell it. You need to get it to people. So your social media is the magazine store down the road, or like we have newspaper guys in the street waving around, shouting the headlines. That's what your social media is. Like Twitter, you should promote your blog, your newspaper. So that's how I like to present it. So you've got all of this, use it, because it's to your advantage.
Yep. One of the other little, I guess, sayings, as long as we're into catchphrases, and this isn't one, I think Mari Smith, who's the Facebook expert. If you're not following Mari for anything Facebook related, you really need to. But I heard her say one time, and this is paraphrased, but the importance of content, and you've seen it as well in today's webinar with the Fireplaces Galore and the large globe, but content in many instances is king, because that's the most important thing to be producing that gets visibility. But the second part of that is engagement is queen, and she holds the keys to the castle. And just producing content, and I think one of the slides that you had shown where there was one of the fireplace businesses that was producing way more content, but there wasn't any engagement, because I think it was slide number 4. There was a lot of followers but if you're not engaging, you're not having conversation, if you're not interacting with folks, then you're just talking to talk, and nobody's listening, nobody's paying attention, nobody's providing you with, hey, valuable feedback. So think about that as you build out your assessment of what you're doing. It's not just the amount of content that you produce, but it's how do you react and be part of that. So whether you share it on LinkedIn and somebody likes it and makes a comment and you never respond, you just want to make sure that you're there engaged in that with folks on an ongoing basis to show that you're a real person. And the EAT strategy further reinforces that from that Moz blog that you shared.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Francois, for folks that would be interested in maybe paying a little bit more attention to you or getting connected, how can folks find you in this big world of the internet in which we live?
Well, have you ever tried to Google yourself? I normally do that when I'm on my own sometimes. So there we go. So, I really believe in building your brand online. So you can see here, I'll take an ad in my name as well, just in case you really want to get hold of me. And
there you go.
And if you have a look at it, these are all entries that I've controlled. My LinkedIn, my About Us page, Twitter, you name it. It's all about having entries in Google, and it's done through content, right? So anytime, I have the opportunity to publish something, I'll take the opportunity to do it. And I think that's my advice to all of you as well. Think about, this is another analogy that I do. McDonald's, before they build a hamburger joint, they buy all the corner properties, right? So they buy the corner properties, and then they will put up these hamburger buildings. For me, register your name in all the social media sites that are available, and that is your corner properties. Buy them, own them in your name, and then if you ever decide to use them, you can just put some content on it, and that's how you build your hut on that. So that's what I like to do, is just have the opportunity of just making sure you can manage your online reputation. But feel free, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on that, and it's my go-to social media for business to business.
Absolutely. So, well, it's no wonder, just looking at that screen, why I always go to you anytime something comes up in social media and I want to know what's going on. So I wanted to leave everybody with a final visual, even though there's snow on the ground here in Michigan, and any body of water likely has a sheet of ice over it. Here's some fond memories of us out on some kayaks, enjoying a little nature together. So I wanted to just thank you again, Francois, for spending your time today with us and our audience, chatting about your chapter and sharing your insights. So we really appreciate it. And especially with the time difference between us and down there, it's probably well past dinner time. So thank your family for allowing us to steal you away for an hour during today's webinar.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I love being part of your shows, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon. in real life, not behind yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, well, that concludes today's episode. Have a great Christmas. Have a wonderful New Year. Enjoy the holidays. I am very appreciative for everybody that has followed the Free Webinar Wednesday journey, and I'm excited about next year sharing even more chapters and getting to talk to even more of my WSI family. And this very, very shortly, the book will actually be available on Amazon, and people can start getting it. So just looking forward to 2020 and beyond. But thanks again to Francois for his time, and that concludes today's show. Have a wonderful couple of weeks, and we'll be talking to you next year. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.